You ever get that feeling? Like you want to know the secrets? Like what really goes on behind the scenes of a movie or a TV show?
Oh, yeah. There's a certain magic to it, right? Seeing how the sausage gets made, the messy creative process, all the little decisions that come together to create that final product.
And today, that's exactly what we're diving into. We're going to be looking at what makes compelling behind the scenes content. For films, TV shows, music videos, you name it.
It's like we're trying to crack the code, figure out what works, what doesn't, and maybe even inspire you to create some behind the scenes content of your own.
All right, so let's get into it. All the sources we've been looking at seem to agree on one thing. There's a specific kind of story arc that works really well for this type of content.
Yeah, there's a definite journey there. It mirrors the creative process itself, starting with that initial spark of an idea and ending with that polished final product that everyone sees.
It's like an origin story, right? How did this thing even come to be? I love that one of the sources actually says it all started with the simple question, what if?
And that's so true, isn't it? It reminds us that even the biggest, most ambitious projects, they often start with something small, like a simple question, a spark of curiosity.
So true. But then, of course, you've got all that planning and groundwork that has to happen before the cameras even roll.
Oh, absolutely. Pre-production is key why. Think casting, location scouting, set design, laying the foundation.
And I'm guessing all of those choices in pre-production end up having a huge impact on what the final product looks and feels like.
Huge. Like, think about costumes. The source mentions the Grand Budapest Hotel as an example of using costumes to really reflect the characters' personalities. It's like visual shorthand.
Oh, that's a good one. I got to rewatch that. But speaking of things not going according to plan, our sources also talk about the importance of being adaptable. Because, let's face it, things go wrong on set, right?
All the time. It's practically a guarantee. One source even says, on day 3 of shooting, the rainstorm delayed everything, forcing us to improvise.
A rainstorm, huh? I bet there's some hilarious stories about things like that happening on set.
Oh, yeah. Like this one from a comedy shoot. There was a sudden heat wave, and all the prop ice cream they were using started melting super fast. So the actors are trying to deliver their lines while pretending to lick these rapidly melting cones. Chaos.
Oh my gosh, I can just imagine. But hey, sometimes those unexpected problems can lead to even better results, right?
Exactly. The source actually goes on to say about that rainstorm, we had to redesign the scene on the spot. It was stressful, but it turned out even better than we imagined. Limitations forcing creativity.
Makes you wonder if that kind of thing can lead to burnout, though, right?
Yeah,
All that stress and changing plans on the fly.
totally. The sources acknowledge that. Overcoming challenges is great, but it can definitely take a toll. One even suggests that behind-the-scenes content should be honest about those struggles, show the resilience and dedication it takes to keep going when things get tough.
So we're seeing the human side of it all. Not just the glitz and glam, but the real effort. But even with all the challenges, our sources keep coming back to the sense of community that develops on a project, right?
It's huge. The bond between cast and crew, the shared experience of bringing something to life. One source puts it perfectly. We became like a family by the end of it, and that really comes through in the best behind-the-scenes content.
Makes it more meaningful for the audience, right? You're not just
Yeah.
watching a movie or a show, you're seeing the culmination of all that hard work, all those relationships, those shared moments.
Exactly. It's humanizing.
And speaking of the creative process,
Yeah.
we can't forget the technical magic that goes into so many of these projects.
Oh, yeah. The how did they do that moments.
Yeah.
Our sources dedicate a whole section to this stuff. Lots of cool insights on things like special effects, CGI, stunts, even music composition.
Right. Like using green screens in a unique way. They talk about the film Gravity and how they used a combo of green screen tech, light boxes, and wire rigs to simulate zero gravity.
Oh, wow. So cool. I'm guessing the source suggests showing all that behind the scenes to really illustrate how much work goes into creating those kinds of realistic visuals. You got it. It's like peeking behind the curtain to see how the magic trip is done. And then there's the whole idea of pre-visualization.
Pre-visualization. Okay, explain that one.
Basically, it's like using computer graphics to create mock-ups of scenes before you actually film them. And the source recommends showing these previs clips next to the final footage to highlight the transformation.
So it's about showcasing the evolution of an idea, how it starts out rough and gradually takes shape over time. Pretty cool.
It is. And that concept of showing the evolution of an idea is something we can actually apply to our own creative endeavors, don't you think?
Absolutely. Whether we're writing a song or planning a project at work, understanding that it's an iterative process full of changes and refinements, it's valuable.
Totally. And on that note, we've covered a lot of ground already. The initial spark, the planning, the challenges, the human connections.
But the creative process doesn't just end when the cameras stop rolling, does it? What are some of those lasting impressions, the reflections, the takeaways? That's what we'll be getting into next.
And we're back. Still digging deep into this behind the scenes world. As we've been talking about all these different parts of the creative process,
Yeah.
it's striking me how much it all kind of connects to bigger life stuff too.
Hmm. Interesting. What do you mean?
Well, just think about it. You start with a rough idea and work towards something finished. There are always obstacles. You need people to collaborate with. There are ups and downs. It's not just filmmaking, is it?
You're right. It does feel kind of universal. Like the film set becomes this little world reflecting all those bigger themes.
Exactly. And the cool thing is, these sources we're looking at don't just talk about the themes, they actually give examples of how to deal with them. Like pre-production, remember. Crucial for films, but also for, like, starting a business, planning a wedding, any big project, really.
Right. It's all about laying the groundwork, being prepared. So when the inevitable curveballs come, you're ready.
Exactly. And even when things go completely sideways, which they always do, we can learn from those on-set stories. Remember that rainstorm example? They had to totally rethink the scene.
Yeah. Classic make lemonade out of lemons
Mm-hmm.
situation.
Totally. It shows how important it is to be able to adapt, to think on your feet, turn a problem into something creative.
Reminds me of that Edison quote. I haven't failed. I've just found 10,000 ways that won't work. I love that.
Right. It's about seeing those setbacks as part of the process, even opportunities. Sometimes the best stuff comes from having to change course.
True, true.
Yeah.
But we can't forget all this adapting and problem solving. It can be pretty draining too, right?
Oh, for sure. The sources definitely mention the emotional side of things. It's not all fun and games on set, even when you're making a comedy.
So how do they deal with that?
It's all about resilience, dedication, and honestly, just having a good team to lean on, sharing the load, keeping each other's spirits up, even when things are tough.
That sense of community seems to be a big theme. It's like no matter the project, people crave that feeling of being part of something bigger than themselves.
Definitely. And it makes sense, right? Whether it's a film crew, a band, a sports team, whatever, that sense of belonging gives things meaning.
It's like finding your people, the ones who get it, who've been through it with you. Those shared experiences create some strong bonds, huh?
They do. And those bonds, that's what makes the whole journey worthwhile, you know?
Makes sense. It's not just about the end result, it's about the people you share the journey with.
Speaking of the journey, we've talked about that initial spark of an idea, all the planning, the inevitable problems, those connections that form. But there's this other element that I think gets overlooked sometimes.
Well, that.
It's the folks we could call the unsung heroes, the ones behind the scenes who are making the director's vision a reality.
You mean like the crew? All the amazingly talented people who work on set but aren't necessarily in front of the camera?
Precisely. We're talking about the gaffers, the best boys, the
Hmm.
Foley artists, the costume designers, the makeup artists. They're all essential to the process.
Oh yeah, those Foley artists. The way they use everyday objects to create realistic sound effects. It's like magic.
It is. And one of our sources even suggests specifically highlighting those skills in behind the scenes content, like showing them at work, using a coconut shell to make a horse hoof sound, you know?
That would be awesome. Like showing the audience, look, this is how much detail goes into every little thing you see and hear.
Right. And it's not just the sound folks. Imagine showing costume designers hand-stitching a dress or makeup artists transforming someone into a fantastical creature.
It's like a whole new level of appreciation for the artistry that goes into filmmaking. A peek behind the curtain of this whole other world.
And as we explore this world more, seeing the roles everyone plays, it really hits home how collaborative creativity actually is.
Even those things we think of as individual art forms, they still come from teamwork. Everyone's skills and perspectives coming together to make one big thing. Pretty cool.
It is. And as we keep diving deeper, we'll see how that team spirit shows up in some fun ways too. From those bloopers and funny moments on set to the bigger reflections people have looking back at a finished project. Stay tuned for all that.
We're back. You know, as we've been on this deep dive exploring all these different aspects of the creative process,
Mm-hmm.
I keep thinking about how much richer our experience of watching a movie or TV show becomes when we get a glimpse of what went on behind the scenes.
Oh, absolutely. It's like we've been saying, it just adds this whole other dimension. You start to see the sheer amount of work, the passion, the collaboration that goes into even the simplest things.
Exactly. And honestly, knowing about the challenges or the funny things that happen during filming, it kind of makes it even more enjoyable to watch.
For sure. Like, you might notice a little detail in the set design, and suddenly you realize it's connected to a character's backstory or something.
It's like you're in on the secret.
Yeah, and it turns you into a more engaged viewer. Like, you're not just passively watching, you're actively participating in this whole creative journey.
Love that. But speaking of journey,
Hmm.
our sources talk a lot about the technical magic folks,
Hmm.
the ones who make those crazy visual effects happen.
Oh, yeah. The visual effects artists, the stunt coordinators, the sound designers, they're wizards.
Total wizards, working tirelessly behind the scenes to create these seamless moments of movie magic.
It's amazing. And what's cool is the sources suggest we can actually learn from their processes too. Like, remember that idea of showing green screens and those previs clips next to the finished product?
Yeah, it's all about being transparent,
Right.
showing how an idea evolves.
Right. It highlights the fact that even in those super technical fields, it's still a human process.
Yeah.
Trial and error, experimentation, refining things over and over.
It's about trusting the process, I guess, putting in the work,
Yeah.
knowing that even the most amazing things are achieved one step at a time.
Exactly. And that applies to all of us, right? Not just filmmakers. It's a great reminder that we all have that ability to create.
But it doesn't always have to be these big, serious projects either. The sources talk about finding the joy in the everyday moments too.
Oh, yeah. The importance of on-set traditions, little rituals, inside jokes.
It's about creating that positive vibe, a space where people feel supported, where they can be themselves, have fun, and celebrate each other's wins.
Exactly. And one source even suggests including bloopers in behind-the-scenes content just to remind people that everyone makes mistakes.
Humanizes the whole thing. And let's be real, those bloopers are often the funniest parts.
Oh, for sure. There's this story in one of the sources. An actor totally flubs his line, like epically messes it up. The whole set is dying laughing. They ended up keeping it in the movie. It became one of the most memorable scenes.
I love those happy accidents, the unplanned moments that end up being the best parts.
It reminds us that creativity isn't always predictable. It's messy, it's exciting, there are going to be detours along the way.
It's an adventure.
Hmm.
And it's an adventure that's open to all of us, no matter what we're creating.
Couldn't agree more. So as we wrap up this deep dive, we encourage you to take these insights with you.
Next time you watch a movie or a show, think about the journey behind it. Seek out those behind-the-scenes glimpses. It's amazing what you can learn, not just about filmmaking, but about creativity in general.
You might even find it sparks some creative ideas of your own. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep.